It is Friday, y'all. Happy Friday. You're locked on Jyneration Nation on LRS102.com, The Walrus. I am Jen Yates, the generator. I'm so happy it's Friday. And I'm excited because I have Alonzo Ramont up in my studios right now. CEO and creator of Redline Performing Arts, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I want you to tell me all about it. I've known you for a while. We've done a lot of theater shows here and there. You just directed Godspell, which I had the pleasure of playing drums in. Super awesome. I'm a big fan of yours. So I want you to start by telling our listeners all about why you created Redline.
Sure.
And how you got your start in theater.
Cool. Oh, okay.
Ooh, yeah, I'm going to ask some good ones today.
So Redline is birthed out of, so I've been doing theater for a long time, and I've been directing a lot in Southern Indiana, a lot of great people working with me and students, but I really felt like I needed to give back to my community where I grew up, which is West Louisville.
Right
Shout
on.
out.
Shout out to West
39th
Louisville.
Street is where I grew up.
Yeah.
But I basically felt like there just wasn't a lot of representation, not only for people who look like me, but from people who have similar backgrounds growing up. You know, we didn't have a ton of money growing up, that kind of thing. We couldn't afford voice lessons and dance lessons and all that stuff.
They're expensive.
They are expensive.
I know, because I teach.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So, so my heart was just really to reach a whole new generation and community that sometimes hasn't been tapped into very much. And so the name Redline is actually birthed out of redlining, which is a process that was done in the 1930s and 40s, where essentially certain communities were redlined and not given resources, not given money, not given insurance.
They couldn't, they wouldn't give them money for like housing and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, basically the government told people, businessmen and women, don't invest in this part of town. They're not worth the investment, those sorts of things. And so our goal is to reverse the red line curse and basically take all of those things that have been missing for all the years in red line communities. And believe it or not, West Louisville is not the only red line community in Louisville. Even Jeffersonville is actually a red line community.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so we have several of those, and so a lot of major cities have red line areas in them. But so that was kind of the idea and the thought, and I had already started a theater company, and we changed the name and sort of rebirthed into Redline. And ever since we did that, it has been a phenomenal journey. We started with an Aretha Franklin tribute earlier this year,
cool.
which was amazing.
Sounds cool.
Which was super dope. We did it over at St. Stephen's, huge crowd. It was awesome. And then, like you mentioned, we did Godspell, which was
pretty much sold out.
I mean,
you could not fit another person up in that church.
We got as many chairs up there as we could, and the cast is one of my all-time favorite casts because we had just a mix of people who, some experienced, some super experienced, and some it was their first not only show but first time on stage, period.
Wow, I would have no idea.
We had a lot of those. And so and then to take like the white girl, high schooler from Sellersburg, Indiana, to the single mom with 4 kids who live on 26th Street.
Right.
Like, that just meant so much to me, and to actually see people build genuine bonds was super dope. And
by the way, I want to give you kudos because I was semi-familiar with Godspell, the story. I knew it was about Jesus Christ. I kind of knew the storyline. I had heard that the music was awesome, so that's why I took it. And it was kind of a more rockin', and I listened to some of the songs. I really loved them. But kudos to you because Jesus was a black Jesus.
He was.
Judas was a white Judas.
He was.
It's very fitting, and I love your take that you kind of took it and spun and put like a little bit of hip-hop flair to it. That is so cool.
Yeah, that was one of my I knew going into that show that I wanted to make it as modern and urban as feel. And a lot of people were like, man, I've seen Godspell plenty of times and I hate it, or I like the music but I don't like the show. But we actually made it happen to where people enjoyed the production, and we just put our own spin on a lot of stuff. And I let a lot of the cast come up with their own stuff, like some of the rap. And I was like, just do what feels natural to you.
I love the box, the cajon playing. Is that in the original?
No, it's not.
Okay,
We
super
added
cool.
that.
I love that idea.
Listen, I love a cajon. So
Me too. Me too.
So I added it as much as we could, and
everybody calls it a Cajun. It cracks me up if they don't know Spanish. They're always like, hey, that thing that people sit on and drum on. And I'm like, a cajon? And they're like, a Cajun,
Yeah, so Gospel was a cool experience.
Yeah.
We are actually working right now I'm actually just left rehearsal for Beauty and the Beast Jr., which is a 60-minute version of Beauty and the Beast.
Cool.
And
is that at JCC?
It's going to be at the JCC.
Okay, yeah.
So
you just stay busy, man.
Listen, so my yesterday was insane.
Yeah.
I woke up, got some breakfast, went for a run.
Yeah.
And then I headed straight to rehearsal over at Louisville Central Community Center for Grease.
Oh, cool.
My friend Erica Denise is directing that show. And
I love Erica Denise. We need to get her on the show.
We do.
Erica, if you're
great.
listening, come in. In fact, I've got Chris Wilkerson's coming in.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and we had David Borman III
he told me
on
that.
last week. I'm trying to hit all the theater community as well as the musician community.
Yes.
As well as just anything awesome going on in town. You know what I mean?
We need to do that for sure.
Absolutely. So send them my way.
Yeah, I will. It was went to Greece, which was great. Their show opens this coming weekend or next weekend, next Friday, and sat in on rehearsal. Then I had to go to All Nations where I work.
Right. Which, by the way, I love that church.
Yeah, it's a cool church.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I need to come visit because I've been looking for a church, and I would love to actually play drums in a church at some point.
Yeah.
But that seems like right up my alley.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
We got some great people. So I have some interns this summer. So I had to make sure I was getting stuff done. And the girl that I work with in the office was having a baby yesterday.
Oh,
so
wow.
I had to be there. So
Understood.
Did that, went right into Beauty and the Beast Junior rehearsal, which we're rehearsing at All Nations. Mm-hmm. Then I had to run over to Center Stage at the Jewish Community Center where I'm directing Dreamgirls.
Right.
We had a
Congrats.
Dreamgirls rehearsal.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I was there for maybe 30 minutes before I had to go get dressed to do my performance of Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, wow.
Last
so,
night.
yeah, you are all over the place.
All over.
Do you also play music?
Yeah, a little bit.
Because, I mean, I think, and you'll have to educate me on this, but I would think as a director in theater that it would help a lot if you understood music as well.
It does, and I think, when I was doing high school, it helped because I didn't always have to hire people. I could be the music director.
Right.
And I could sometimes, depending on the show, be the choreographer,
yeah.
which saved us money.
Yeah.
As far as artistically, I would prefer to have a whole staff.
Well, of course.
But I think as far as saving money, I mean, Godspell, I did about half of the choreography for that, and I'm doing the choreography for Beauty and the Beast Jr. So, it does really help that I grew up and was forced to play instruments.
What did you start on? I'm just curious.
I started on drums.
Did you really?
Yes.
Yay! I need my hand clap.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Do I have a drum roll? Oh, there we go. Drum roll.
Yes.
I just yesterday got sound effects.
Nice. I love it.
Me too.
Yeah, that was the first instrument I learned, and I actually took lessons. Which was awesome.
Very cool, man. I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's why I love this show is I get to meet, I've known you for a long time, but to get to really know you, it's really cool to get to interview you. So
that was my
very
first
cool.
instrument. I played violin growing up, and I sang in choir, but then I discovered theater. And I didn't even start, you asked me about starting theater. I didn't even take a theater class until my senior year of high school.
Wow.
I did a couple shows by mistake. This girl, Ashley Kate Adams, shout out to the Adams family.
Yeah,
they are amazing.
We love the Adams family.
Yes.
I love that. And that's a great musical, too.
Right,
Yeah,
it is. So the Adams, they are really well known in the theater community here. And we were in choir in 8th grade, and this girl, Ashley, we were friends with me, she heard me singing in class, and she said, "Hey, we're doing Les Mis. You should be Javert." And I was like,
oh, wow.
Ja who? Like, Ja Rule? Is that what you're talking about? Because
that's hilarious.
I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Right.
And she was like, well, take this CD and listen to it, and you should audition for the role. And I did. I can't believe we were doing Les Mis in 8th grade, but
Did you have the rotating stage?
No, we didn't.
I was going to say, it wasn't that complex.
But shout out to No Middle School because, they're
we
great.
love No.
They have a
I've
great
got
program.
some students there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I auditioned and I got Javert. That was my first musical ever. My
Wow.
first show. I knew nothing about musical theater except Grease 2.
Yeah. When I actually did Les Mis too. I don't know if you were on that one. I can't
And I
remember.
wasn't at center stage, no.
Yeah, I did Les Mis, and I really knew nothing about Les Mis.
Yeah.
I knew it was historic because
Right.
I had seen marching bands perform it throughout the years because I
Yeah.
was more of a marching band chick. And oh my gosh, I was like, okay, I did this for resume, but I'll never do it again.
It's a beast.
It's long.
It's a lot.
It's way too long for me.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And it's not fun. It's not necessarily fun for like a drummer, It's not that kind of show for sure.
No, I'm more of a set player. I love
Right.
percussion. I really do, and I love anything electronic with midis and all
Yep.
that fun stuff. Like Sweeney Todd, I got to do a lot of like MIDI sounds
Yeah.
and triggering things, and it was just way more fun. But for a drummer in Les Mis, other than what's the big one? The keeper of the
Master of the House.
Yeah.
Yep.
So other than Master of the House and like the sewer scenes, it was like snooze
Yeah,
fest. And I was on timpani.
Oh yeah.
So
that's-
yeah, it was just
that's
like
not that
first act
exciting.
was okay, second act was
That's
not okay. Yeah, but I will never forget that one because you know how it's live theater, and I'm sure you've experienced this as a director. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong, usually,
yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
So every musical I've done, there's been something like disastrous actually happen.
Mm-hmm.
And in Les Mis, when the gunfire goes off, they threw the gun and it got caught in the pulley system that was turning the stage, and there were physical people underneath the stage, like right beside me in the pit that I could hear moving the stage, and I could hear them going, it won't turn. It
Oh,
won't
my
turn. And that's at the
God.
scene where everybody's like dead and they're just sitting there.
and
And they literally were there for what felt like 5 to 10
man,
minutes.
that's
And then
crazy.
finally it goes black, and then everybody has to come and grab everything off the
That
stage.
show at center stage, it was huge.
It
I
was
mean, on
huge.
that tiny stage.
Yeah.
It was actually at the time I was in Les Mis at Floyd Central.
Yeah.
They brought me in as a guest artist to
Cool.
be Jean Valjean, which was awesome. One of the coolest experiences of my life. Now, as you said, things go wrong.
Yeah.
And I actually missed.
I kinda love it when things go
They
wrong.
do. This time it wasn't fun for me because I missed an entire scene.
Oh, no.
And it was the night they were being adjudicated for like the International Thespian Festival to take the show and perform it there.
Oh,
And
no.
I missed Fontine's death,
Oh,
which is kind of important. I'm supposed to
Kind
be
of,
there
yeah.
holding her as she dies.
yeah.
Yeah, I didn't make it.
Oh, no.
So-
I was like, how do you miss an entire scene in theater?
So I
That's
had the
mind-blowing.
previous scene before I had gotten injured running off stage and like fell over this whole thing. It was ridiculous. So I'm like limping to the dressing room and I'm
Right.
like, oh man,
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get myself I'm slowly getting dressed and they're like, Alonzo, you're supposed to be on stage. And I'm like, no, I'm good. I have a couple minutes. And they're like, no, you've missed the scene. And so I try to creep out there. And, everything's going crazy in my mind. So I can't hear where I am in the music. And she's not singing at this point. She's dead. So I'm
Yeah.
like creeping on stage.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Trying to figure out, and the conductor is literally, he's just going. He's like,
yeah.
screw you.
Yeah,
I'm not changing anything.
Yeah.
And so it was one of the most embarrassing moments of my whole career because I'm with a bunch of high schoolers.
Yeah.
But Floyd Central's theater program is insane.
That's what I hear. I
it's-
don't know a lot about it, but I know a lot of people that are over in that area and work there and
It's
have
crazy.
done shows there. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Indiana pays better than Kentucky usually, though, for
Indiana,
their
that is
shows.
true. That
I
is-
know, because I've done them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just speaking truth,
That
y'all.
is true. That is true.
Yeah, I wonder why that
so-
is. Is there a reason for that, I wonder?
I don't know. I think it's just somebody actually told me recently. They said, you pay more than some other theater companies, and I thought, huh? Do I? I feel like I would pay more if I could.
Yeah.
And so I don't really know why that is. It's like-
I agree, because, I mean, I loved what I got paid on Godspell. Yeah, it was
yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
It's-
At this point in my career as just a percussionist in the pit orchestras
Mm-hmm.
and stuff, obviously you have to be in with the music directors, and the music directors
Yep.
kind of have that top 5 that they kind of cycle through. And
do.
it's funny because a lot of them overlook me because they're always like, well, I think you're out of town
Doing
or whatever.
something.
I'm like, I'm not. I'm here. Call
Right.
me. But at this point, I did it for resume padding, and I always laugh because my therapist recommended I take musicals to learn to stay present.
Oh, wow.
So I did. Yeah, so Rent was the first one. Weren't you in Rent,
I
right?
was in
so,
Rent, yes.
I started my theater career with you, basically.
Yeah.
And then went on to do a bunch of other stuff. But at this point, I only have a top 5 that I will take at this point, no matter what the
makes
money
sense.
is.
Yeah.
I love Jesus Christ Superstar. I really want to do Hedwig. I've always wanted to do Hedwig. It was the
Yes.
only audition I ever lost. And I don't know. There's a few. I'd love to do Little Shop of Horrors just because I always loved that one, and I've never done that one. Tommy would be cool. I miss Tommy because I was out in L.A. They did it here.
Jesus Christ Superstar is in my top 3 shows that I want to direct next.
Sweet. Well, call me if you need
Yes.
it.
In
Because
fact,
I've never gotten to do it.
I'm considering doing it around the same time we did Godspell this
No
year.
kidding.
Around
Yeah,
Easter.
Yeah, that's smart.
It's one of my all-time favorites,
Me
and I've
too.
always wanted to direct it. I got to be in it at Derby Dinner a few years ago, long time ago,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
But one of my all-time favorites.
I was working with Derby Dinner. I would think that would be. I hear it's pretty, it's tough because of the schedule.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the orchestra is upstairs.
They're above you.
Yeah, that's
which
so
is a little
strange.
different.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. The schedule, you rehearse for 2 or 3 weeks, and then you perform for 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So I
That's a
did
long-
Hairspray
that's a
there,
long
and
run.
we did 80 something performances of Hairspray. I mean, I like Hairspray.
Yeah.
But not that much.
Well, I know. Well, it's kind of funny because you better love these musicals when you go into them because you're going to
Exactly.
do them, 20 plus times. 80 shows is a long
It's a
run.
lot, and I think when the show is really successful, they'll add in performances throughout the run.
I forgot about that too.
Yeah. Sometimes you get paid for it.
Yeah, no kidding. That's the best part about being a musician. The musicians usually do get paid.
You do.
Unfortunately, the actors not so
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
I never understood that really, but of course, I'm semi-new to theater, so
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
It's one of those things where, so for example, with Redline, one of our goals is to actually be semi-professional where we pay actors at least a stipend. We're working on getting to that point. But, I mean, I think when you think about the amount of actors that there are, it's difficult. But shout out to Pandora.
Yeah,
They
Michael
pay.
Drury's in here on Monday.
Okay,
yeah,
awesome.
he's in here on Monday.
I love Michael.
Yeah.
I'm actually directing a show for Michael, Choir Boy,
Cool.
later this year.
I love that.
Super pumped for that. And I love Michael Drury. And I've already learned so much from him.
Yeah, and he's been very successful with Pandora.
Very successful.
Yeah.
And owning your own theater company. And it's not an established, for example, Center Stage is owned by the Jewish Community Center,
Right.
so it's a little bit different. But owning your own company and trying to make it successful and professional and where people want to come back,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
hard, And so Michael has been a great, already in a short amount of time, influence on how I, can run this company successfully and.
Well, so far so good, man.
So far so good.
Kudos
We are.
to you.
Yeah,
I'm giving you
we're-
some claps because it's super rad. And we've got you for the next hour and a half.
I love
so yeah, we're gonna talk all things. I've got all kinds of cool questions about
Cool.
theater. We can talk music,
I love
anything
it.
you want. What's your favorite style of rock and roll? Because you are on LRS, and
I am.
we've been a premier rock and roll station since 1964.
Wow.
I don't know if you know anything about LRS, but
I don't.
Well,
It was
we've been
brand new
around
to
for a
me.
long time. In fact, when Pink Floyd was breaking Dark Side of the Moon, we were breaking that
Okay.
on vinyl and whatnot.
Wow.
And I actually worked for them before they went under, and then they threw me on B96.5,
Okay.
where I worked under Mark Gunn
Yeah.
and went and met Russ Parr and did
Yeah.
all this cool stuff with him. And then I got out of radio because I was covering politics, and I did not want to cover politics. I was in it for the
Yeah.
for the music,
Yeah.
So I left to pursue my love of music, and then skip 10, 12 years.
Wow.
I come in just like you are to do an interview about my record, the Hillbilly Swagger Project.
Yeah.
And they were like, hey, you used to work at LRS. Do you want a job?
Wow.
And then here we are. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's
I
all
love
about
that.
the music. It's all about, I can interview anybody I want.
That's
So
so dope.
I
I
really
love that.
wanted to use my platform to
Which
get.
I appreciate.
Yeah, you're welcome to get music, theater, LGBTQ community issues out there. You know what I mean?
Love it.
Yeah,
Love it.
everything I love, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we've got all kinds of cool stuff. We can spin any style of rock and roll from the 60s till current, which opens it wide open.
I love that.
Yeah, and we're going to get it kicked off with some No Doubt.
Love it.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's hella good.
Oh my gosh.
You're locked on to
Throwback.
LRS102.com, The Walrus. It's Parliament. I went out on a branch there with that one.
Listen, that's what I grew up on.
Me too. I love me some P-Funk, man.
Friday nights, that's what was playing at our house.
I was going to say, roller skating rink.
Yep, that too. Yep.
No kidding, right? Yeah. I love Parliament. I went on to get to tour with Razor Sharp of P-Funk, which was an amazing experience for me. We did a lot of shows in New York City and Brooklyn at the Brooklyn Bowl. And man, he was just the coolest dude. Rest in peace, Razor. He passed away last year too, man. All these great musicians I've been surrounded with are just, man, going left and right. It's so sad, you know?
It is. I see that too.
Yeah.
It really is.
I was going to ask you, do you have like a top 5 favorite musicals or theater pieces of all time?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. I was going to ask you what yours were.
Yeah. So top 5, definitely Les Mis. We talked about Les Mis a little bit. But also it was first show I was ever in. So, and I've seen it 6 times on Broadway.
Wow. I would love to see it on Broadway.
Yeah, it was amazing. I've been in it 3 times, which is rare, for Les Mis.
I was going to say you do love it because that's that's like a 3.5-hour show.
It's a lot. And I've also directed it once.
Wow.
So,
were you Jean Valjean or
I was
Javier?
Javert the first time,
Javert.
and then Jean Valjean the second 2 times.
Okay.
And then directed it for high school. So
Very cool.
pretty awesome. Yeah, so there's Les Mis, there's Rent.
Right.
There's Jesus Christ Superstar.
I love that you love Rent.
Oh,
because
Rent, yes.
By the way, I got to see Rent in high school on Broadway.
Okay,
I went
awesome.
up. I wasn't really familiar with that show, but after I saw it, it touched me. And it's more of one of the rockin' ones.
Yep.
And Jonathan Larson, man, his story is...
It's amazing. It's heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It really is. And for him to go on and posthumously win all these awards for that, I would love to have seen what would have happened if he could have... If he didn't die of a brain aneurysm on... It was opening night, wasn't it?
I think it was dress rehearsal.
Or dress rehearsal the night before opening night. He died of a brain aneurysm and never got to live to see his show go on to be performed. And then it went on, I think, to be one of the longest running shows.
It is.
And the first one to feature a drag queen character who died of AIDS. Really featured that. And, of course, I don't know how old you are, but I am old enough to live through the Ryan White time period where AIDS was a big to-do.
Yeah.
They didn't want you speaking about it. They didn't know how you contracted it. It's a very weird time period. So for that piece to come out during that was a really big to-do.
It really is. And I think it's very interesting. I was hesitant. So I had been in the show. When we did it, I had done it once already in the ensemble. And I was reluctant to do it, but I'm really grateful. John Leffert was the director at the time, and he really pushed me to do it. And I was like, man, I just don't know if I can put myself through it again, just emotionally.
Remind me what the character was you were
Collins.
playing? Yeah, Collins. That's right.
And Collins, has AIDS, and is dating Angel, the drag queen. And so it's a heavy show. Yeah. As much as I love it, it's a heavy production.
Were you friends with the guy who was Angel in our production?
No, that was our first time meeting.
Wow. He was great.
That. Yeah.
Doing the backflips and the splits and all that. And, Angel kind of has to be over the top a little bit.
He does.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. But yeah, so Rent, I love Rent. I love A Chorus Line. That's one of my favorites. I love. I said Superstar, of course.
Yeah. JCSS.
Yeah. Those are some of my favorites. There's another one that I can't think. Oh, I love Once on This Island. One of my favorites to be in. Done that several times as well. So.
Is there anything you haven't done that you really want to do?
Oh yeah. I haven't. I've directed Little Shop, but I've not been in it.
I think Little Shop would be really fun. Because I love every song on that. And
fun.
I grew up with that soundtrack, when the movie came out with Steve Martin.
So twice I've auditioned and not gotten the plant.
Oh, no, you auditioned for the plant?
Yeah. And,
isn't that Jim Henson?
Yeah.
It was Henson, yeah.
And so twice I've done that. Once at Derby, once at Center Stage. And so... they said they didn't think my voice was right for it at Derby.
Do you just voice the plant, or do you actually? I was going to say you don't have to dress up as the plant.
No,
because it kind of grows.
You have to sing off stage. You can't. There's no way.
I was going to say, how do they do that?
Now I do know that there have been companies that you operate the plant and you sing. I'm not doing that. Unless you pay me a whole lot of money.
Right.
I ain't doing that.
Yeah. So, it's like me and cover bands nowadays. I'm like, I ain't doing that no more unless you pay me a lot of money.
Exactly.
Or it's a great benefit,
Yeah. So I'm at the point in my performing career where I'm really only doing shows that I really want to do. So if it's
Same,
something
man.
that's on my bucket list, Beauty and the Beast came out of nowhere. I was actually at auditions for Center Stage to direct Dreamgirls, and Frank,
Which is awesome, by the way. I'm super pumped about
so
Dreamgirls.
excited.
Are y'all
I'm so
open
excited.
yet or no?
No.
Okay, it's coming.
So we've only had 3 rehearsals.
Okay,
so
cool.
We opened September 5th, but Frank said, "Well, why don't you audition for The Beast?" And I was like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm retired." That's what I always tell people.
I'm retired. I'm 2 million.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's what I say.
I love it. Yeah. And so he convinced me to audition, and I did. And then he cast me, and it's been interesting. It was a rough rehearsal process for me because it's just been a while since I've been on stage.
You've been directing more
I've been
than
directing,
acting. Yeah.
and so I love directing. Like that is my first love, honestly. And so I like acting and performing as well, but directing is really my gift, I think. And so it's been interesting, but I would love if someday to be in Aladdin.
Yeah,
I'd love
ooh.
to be the genie.
I could see you as the genie in Aladdin.
I would kill to do that.
Yeah.
So
that would be a fun role, I would think.
It would be. So there's a couple others that like I said, Little Shop, I'd love to be the plant. There's a couple other things that I would like to do as well. So
man, I like all the darker musicals. Like I loved Sweeney Todd. That was
Sweeney
one of my
Todd is
all-time
amazing.
favorites.
Yeah.
Sondheim, any piece that he writes is just
brilliant.
I mean, he really is brilliant.
Yep.
And Jekyll and Hyde was really interesting.
Yeah.
The contrast between the flip of the character.
And I love those are my favorite kind of roles, those character parts
bet.
like that.
I bet.
Like I love that. That's why I like Beast and
Oh, yeah.
Once on this island I was Papa Gay, the god of death.
Yeah.
I love
right.
getting to be
Ooh,
something.
I would love to be the god of
different.
death.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It just sounds
Love
like
it. I love that
intense.
stuff. And it's interesting though because people know about like my faith, and so sometimes, especially when I was younger, I really struggled with like, well, I don't want people to think this and think that if I do this show.
Oh,
or
you mean like
do that.
Because you're a Christian or something, and then you didn't want them to think bad of you if you were doing like a devil role. Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah.
Now that I'm older, I don't care.
Right. Yeah. Well, people that aren't in the arts sometimes have a hard time understanding art. But
do.
the cool thing about art, and I'm a huge proponent of art, I think all kids should be. Michelle Lewis was in here, and we were talking. It's a basic human right for people to be exposed to art and music, because it can help. It's so healing and it's so therapeutic. And I'm always saying, if these kids out here that were shooting up schools had a way to express themselves through music and be honest about what was going on, then maybe we would be living in a better world. You know what I mean? Because the way I use my music is for my own therapy.
Exactly.
And if you think about the songs that we listen to, and I bring this up often, can you imagine if Bob Marley wrote I Shot the Sheriff Today?
Oh,
how controversial that would be?
Yeah.
Yeah, but in music, we can kill off Earl and put him in the trunk and drive him into the river.
Right.
That's the cool part about music.
True.
You can do stuff in music and in art and in theater that you cannot do in your everyday life. That's not accepted. But it's completely accepted when it's in art.
When it's in art, it is. And I think people need that outlet. There's a quote from Felicia Rashad, the mom on the Cosby Show.
Oh, yeah.
She said, "Before a child talks, they sing. Before they write, they draw. As soon as they stand, they dance. Art is fundamental to human expression."
I love that.
And I love that because it's so true. Before you ever talk, you sing.
Yeah,
like you listen to a baby and they
yeah. Oh, yeah.
And they dance and they move. And I think that's so part of what we do. And so I get so frustrated. I mean, I used to work in a high school and I had to fight for what we got
for art. Yeah, because that's the first thing they cut out of these schools.
It is.
And it drives me nuts because of again, it's a basic human right.
Yeah, my thing is like we need art. Like if your programs are doing really well, support them. Appreciate your football team who never wins.
Yeah,
but
right.
We're over here changing lives in the theater and in the band room.
Meanwhile, you're teaching them to beat each other up and be competitive. You know what I'm saying? Well, I was telling David Borman III this, where I grew up in Adair County. Our marching band was more important than any of our sports.
Got it.
And it was a small community, but it was a very traditional thing. So if your parents were in the marching band, then they wanted their kids to be in the marching band and their kids to be in the marching band. the marching band was very successful. So music, where I'm from, was way more important to everybody in the community than any sports. And they cared about the sports, but Adair County never won anything.
Right.
But if you look at the Adair County Marching Band, they've won state championships since
awesome.
like the 50s and 60s.
That's amazing.
So, yeah, I was very thankful that I came up in a community that was so surrounded by art and artists and artistic people that really supported it. And that's one thing that I loved about Louisville when I came here. It is a very artistic city.
It is.
Very entrepreneurial.
Yep.
You know, I've been able to make a living as a female drummer in this city just teaching and playing music
awesome.
and theater.
Yep.
That's it. You know what I mean? So I love how the theater programs here are. There is so many theater programs here.
So many, yeah. And it's interesting. I started doing community theater probably 2006 or so, and you've just seen it double since then. I mean, I'm really grateful, and I think sometimes though, it can be interesting because some people get upset about not being cast, so they go start their own company.
Yeah.
And people always ask me.
That sounds like something I would do.
People always ask me, they're like, "Do you want to, do you want to be in your show that you're directing?" I'm like, absolutely not, because I feel like it takes away from the creative process when I'm trying to be an actor and a director at the same time.
I would think that'd be hard.
It is really hard.
I mean, directing yourself.
It is, and unless you absolutely have to do it, it's something that I just don't want to do. I don't have time.
And it's double the work, I would
It's
think.
double the work,
Yeah.
and you can't fully focus. The cast is missing out if you are on stage with them,
Yeah.
And so
it always cracks me up that a lot of these the community theaters around town, the director is usually also, or the conductor for music is also playing.
They are.
There were so many times where Angie Opperton would be like conducting with one hand and playing with the other.
It's because people were on a budget, and
I get that.
For me, I'd love to have Godspell. We were able to have a conductor.
I love that. Yes, you were. And I love him. He's one of my faves.
Yeah, I love David. And actually, he's music directing Dreamgirls.
He told me that, yeah.
Yeah, really excited.
I would think Dreamgirls would be a really fun show to do.
It is fun. And it's a lot of music. I mean, that score is huge. And what people don't know is the majority of the show is sung. And so it's a lot like Les Mis, but it's a lot more fun, obviously. It's set in the 60s and 70s.
Is there any downtime in that one?
There's a little bit. There's a little dialogue. There's some, but it's a lot of singing and, choreography and stuff. So we're really pumped. We have an amazing team. Ronnie Breedlove, he directs shows at the Jeff River stage for River Pops. He's our lighting designer and does some really cool lighting stuff. And so I was like, he is the guy lighting. I have to have.
Yeah, lighting really is everything. I'm a big fan of lighting.
And Dreamgirls has this concert feel to it. And so we're actually going to do tables and a bar and chair. Like everybody's going to be sitting at tables and cabaret style. So,
I love the cabaret style.
Yeah,
Rocky Horror kind of does that too.
Rocky Horror does that, yeah. And so we're really, really excited for that. And so the next year is going to be crazy, and but good. I'm really pumped.
Good.
Really pumped.
So we've got a lot of cool stuff coming up then. Yeah.
Yes.
So if people want to, and I saw you had some kind of donation thing going on with Redline.
Yeah.
If people want to get involved in that, they want to help contribute to your company, where do they go?
So they can go to redlineperformingarts.com. So what we're doing right now is we are looking for 20 people, just 20, to get $50 toward our current production. So we want to offer scholarships to all kids who want to be a part of our show.
I love that you're sponsoring kids.
Yeah, that's
I'm a
my
big fan
heart.
of that.
Like my heart is honestly that eventually people don't have to pay to come see our shows.
Right, that would be cool.
They are completely funded, so that if people want to walk off the street and have no money, so for Godspell, for example, we offered a pay what you can option.
I love that.
So if you didn't have the money to actually pay full price, you pay what you can and you get to see the show.
Yeah.
And so that's our goal, to offer a certain amount of those types of tickets for every production. But so currently we are, if you go to our website, redlineperformingarts.com, just click the donate button, give $50 or whatever you want to give.
Yeah.
And
pay it forward.
Pay it forward, and we go there, and it really is amazing, and I then get to pay it forward. So for example, it provides me an opportunity to go and work with Erica's kids. I went yesterday and today, and free of charge, just because I want to pour into the next. Here's why. So when I was a teenager, I grew up in church, and that was the the sort of the bulk of my life growing up. But I got so many opportunities. My first show I ever directed was at All Nations, and I just went to the pastor and was like, "Hey, I wrote a play. Can we do this play?" And he said, "Sure."
The same pastor that I met?
No,
okay, different
well,
one. Yeah.
Actually, it was his dad.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah,
Okay. I love the pastor there. He's so groovy, man.
Yeah, he is. So it was his dad at the time, and he said, "Yeah, let's do it." And so from that, we did about 6 shows after that, 6 different productions. That was my first introduction into directing. And so I want to give kids those same opportunities that I had at 15, 16 years
Absolutely.
old, who knew nothing about theater, but was just taking a risk. And honestly, Tyler Perry at the time was my inspiration. Before he was famous, he was doing these plays and traveling, and I followed him and loved his shows and stuff. And so I wrote similar shows. That's how I started.
Wow.
Writing
Very
gospel stage plays.
Yeah, I love that. Gospel stage plays.
Yeah,
What an interesting concept.
Yeah, and so that was really interesting, and we're actually talking about doing 1 or 2 of those kinds of things because gospel music is really where I grew up.
Yeah, it's the foundation of everything,
it is.
really.
And you know what,
is.
though? But at the time, Pastor Josh's dad, he's a guitarist, the greatest guitarist I ever have known personally.
No kidding. We need to get him in to talk about that.
Anything. Yeah. And so he would say this. He would say, to be a great musician, you have to know every genre of music.
I agree with
that. You should be diverse. And he would give me CDs, and he's like, go listen to this and listen to this, because we wanted it to influence our music at church.
Well, yeah.
So we wanted people to walk in off the street and hear their style.
Yeah.
And we're going to take an old hymn but turn it into this like pop rock or gospel song or whatever. That. And so that was
no wonder
a huge
you did
influence.
the spin on Godspell. Yeah, I was going to say, because I love that spin.
That was a huge influence on me. And so I grew up personally listening to like we were talking about P-Funk and that kind of stuff, but I love like Black Crowes and
me too,
like I could listen to Hard to Handle like
I have a funny story about the lead singer Chris Robinson, the Black Crowes. I actually got to open up for him in Nashville.
Oh, cool.
I got to play with Bobby Keys, who is the famous saxophone player of the Rolling Stones.
Okay.
He worked with everybody from John Lennon to Ringo Starr.
Yeah.
He's on Mad Dogs and Englishmen with Joe Cocker.
Okay.
I mean, he was awesome. He has since passed. Another awesome musician who's since passed. But anyway, I didn't know. I literally was called in to do backing percussion. I had got a cymbal endorsement in Nashville. I was going to be down there, so some guys were like, hey, can you stop back through and play some conga for us? And I was like, sure. I get there. We do the rehearsal. We go in. That was the most craziest green room experience I have ever experienced, because he still had groupies, at like 80-year-old groupies.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. And it was wild. And then I walk in the back, and they're like, oh, yeah, Chris Robinson of the Black Crowes is opening up for us with his own personal project, like, 3-piece something. And I just remember him looking. He was dressed like a pimp. He had this crazy hat on with the big feather.
Wow. That's not real.
No, but I'm 5'5", and I'm like, he just looked like he was 7 foot tall to me, and pencil thin, and he was really cool, but it was just really, it was just a bizarre, crazy experience.
I'm sure.
Interesting gig for me. But I was also very thankful because we got to do all kinds of really cool songs that, Bobby Keys is the sax solo pretty much on everything from the 70s rock and roll genre. Brown Sugar, that's him on sax. I mean, pretty much all the Stones tracks.
Yeah.
Whatever Gets You Through the Night with Lennon. John Lennon. If you've worked with John Lennon, I mean,
that's it.
Yeah, it doesn't get much better. And I forget his list, but it was pretty thick. Yeah, but I love the Black Crowes. In fact, I started learning guitar so I could try to play She Talks to Angels. Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, it is a great one. So I love all that. And what was that, 90s rock and roll, I guess? Yeah, it was about 90s.
Yeah, it is. And so I love that stuff. And I don't even know how I discovered, Gavin DeGraw, as we were kind of talking about before, is one of my favorites because, talking about Rent, I personally love Adam Pascal. Yeah. And I love his voice. He was the original Roger. And he's got this, like, tone. It's a rock voice, but it's got almost this gospel, like, vibrato and stuff. And I thought, oh my gosh, his voice kind of sounds like mine when I sing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I kind of fell in love with him. And then I found Gavin DeGraw who has this rock sound, but this almost sweet kind of tender
Soulful,
thing, like soul thing. And that, shout out to Brooks Ritter, because Brooks Ritter has that same thing. Where
cool. Let's get him on the show. Brooks, if you're listening, we want you on our show.
We have to, yes.
Get my number through Alonzo.
I'm telling you what, he is one of my favorite all-time singers. And you could take him and put him in the middle of a completely white crowd who loves their rock music, but you could take him to a black church and drop him in the middle of it and sing, and they'd be like, "Sing, my boy!"
Yeah,
It's,
my dude Nick Payne is like that too. I play with Nick Payne in the Kentucky Beatniks, and he is a white guy, but he has so much rhythm and soul to him, and he also grew up playing in the church.
There you go.
And he used to, and literally, he would just go to the West End venues and just play out there, and was very well accepted. So I mean, you could drop him in anything, and people are gonna love him.
Well, what's interesting? A story about Nick Payne is he messaged me maybe in March and said, "Hey man, I'd love to be in Godspell," and I was like, "Bro, the show's about to open. Why didn't you message me in November?"
Like months ago, I think he said something to me about that, and he got really nervous or something. I was like, "Nick, why are you nervous? He knows every song." In fact, he was educating me on Godspell.
Okay.
Before the run.
I would have loved to have him in the show too. Next time, Superstar.
Superstar, yeah.
I mean,
oh man,
yeah, that would be awesome.
If you do that one, I'm totally. I don't even care if I just shake an egg shaker the whole time. I'm like, put me in that somewhere.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, very cool. Awesome. Well, speaking of rent, because that's where we met, I'm gonna spin some.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna spin the opening one.
Love it.
Rent! You're locked on to LRS102.com. I'm the Generator. It's Jyneration Nation on the Walrus. All right, it's Loverboy, working for the weekend. Isn't that what we're all doing? And it's Friday, yay!
Friday.
We love Friday. You're locked on to LRS102.com, The Walrus. I am your host, Jen Yates, the Generator. What do you think about that nickname, Alonzo?
I love when you first said it. I was like, yes, that's perfect.
Beverly McClellan named me that. She said I'm just always energetic and generate like energy nonstop. She was like, you just never stop. And I'm like, it's just not in my soul, man.
I love it. I love that.
Yeah, ever since I was a kid, I just had this this crazy drive. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
And God forbid if you ever tell me I can't do something. Because if you do, I'm going to do it about 4 times, take pictures, go on media and publicize it. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So we were just talking about all the the rock and roll that we love, and we're talking. I mean, we're all across the board. You're talking about Prince.
Yeah.
We'll definitely queue up some Prince.
Love Prince.
What were you saying when you first about his greatest hits record?
I was saying that was one of my first CDs I ever got.
Wow.
In the late 90s, I guess.
Isn't that funny how you can remember that? I'm trying to remember what the first CD I got.
My very first CD was Brandy. Who is my favorite?
Yeah,
I love Brandy.
I do too. What's that duo that she does with
The
Whitney?
Boy Is Mine?
Or yes,
with,
Monica.
Monica.
Oh,
yeah.
I love that one. Yeah.
The Boy Is Mine. Yeah. But yeah, I love Brandy growing up. But along with that, The Preacher's Wife soundtrack, which starred Whitney Houston.
Yes.
And Prince.
Yeah.
Were some of the first CDs I remember getting for like Christmas or my birth. My birthday is 7 days after January 1st. So
I think mine was Dr. Feelgood, Motley Crue.
Oh yeah.
Like I was a big. Well, I had cassettes, and I remember the first cassettes I had because Pat Benatar had her Love is a Battlefield out, and it was a purple cassette tape, which I thought was really cool. And then Madonna's Like a Virgin was out.
Oh,
and of course, that was the first time I'd ever heard the word virgin.
Right.
Pretty much other than church.
Yeah.
But I was like all about some Madonna because, I mean, she gets a bad rep today because she's kind of jumped off the deep end in her old age.
Bit,
I mean, I'm sorry if you're wearing grills and stuff. Come on, Madonna. Come on.
She does what she wants.
She does, and I kind of love her that she is that Leo queen bee, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, when I was growing up with Madonna, she really was in the forefront for women's sexuality, which was not talked about. And she was really pushing those boundaries. I mean, do you remember the Like a Prayer video?
I do. I was a little young when that first came out, but
yeah.
I do remember that, and I've thought often about the fact that she was so ahead of her time.
Oh yeah.
And I think she helped really kick down the door for
She
women
did.
performers.
Well,
and
and for sexuality
what could
and
be
being
done on
open
stage.
about doing whatever you want when it comes
exactly.
to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, that Like a Prayer video, I mean, well, first off, Papa Don't Preach, her first big, that was the most, I mean, everything she did was controversial.
Right.
Which I kind of love it. I call it Madonna 101. You kind of got to be a little bit controversial to get them to talk about
That is
you,
true.
to get
Well, think
them
about
to pay
Lady
attention.
Gaga. I mean,
Exactly.
same
It's the same thing, yeah. And I think the Dixie Chicks kind of followed that line too.
Oh,
a little
sure.
bit.
Heck,
yeah.
they sure did. And I think they did, they really stood for what they believed. And it's interesting. I'm the same way. I've had people tell me before, they're like, man, you're too blunt. Like, you just tell it like it is.
Same,
and I think, if I'm not happy doing something, especially as a performer, I'm not going to be silent about it and how I feel. And if I think something's wrong, there are a couple theater companies around here that don't particularly like me because I spoke up about the things everybody else was whispering about.
Right.
That I'm like, well, I'm not going to complain about it. I'm going to say something
I'm
about
the exact same way. Yeah,
and
I take
it
a lot
gets
of
you in trouble.
well, I take a lot of flack for it, and I've lost some gigs over the day.
right.
But you know what I always say? People don't have to like me, and I don't have to care.
It's none of my business.
It's not my problem if they have bad taste.
How you feel about me? I love that. How you feel about me?
I needed my little
none
drum
of
roll,
my
man.
business.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
I'm like, there's wait.
Exactly.
We're gonna laugh
it at.
Yeah, no, I'm. You know what? I think though, and not that I've ever directed any theater stuff, but I've directed a lot of television stuff and directed a lot of shows and other things that were outside of theater. But I think to be a great director, you have to have that. You have to speak up and say things. You can't be quiet all the time.
And that's what a lot of my students will tell me. They're like, man, we started Beauty and the Beast on Monday and Junior. And the kids were immediately just like, oh, my God, he just said, like, that sucked.
Well, and let's be real, though. Kids say this exact same thing. That's what I love about them. They'll just tell you, they'll be like, do you have a black eye, Miss Jen? And I'm like, no, I'm just tired, honey. I didn't get sleep last night. And it looks like you got hit. I mean, they'll just say whatever.
They do.
I don't like that. Okay, well,
They do.
Or I don't like those shorts on you. They literally will just tell you whatever.
I've been in cast before where the cast will complain about stuff in the dressing room or whatever, and I'm like, I'll go up there and ask, like, when are we doing a mic check? Or what, we need monitors on stage. Like, I'm not singing until there are monitors. Like,
Yeah, I hear you.
Because my voice is my instrument, and I believe in taking care of it. And
I don't know if you saw the sign on the wall over here. It says the voice is an instrument. We have that hung on the wall because
important.
it is. Yes.
Yeah, and I take care of it, and to me, it's my money maker.
Yeah.
And so I am not gonna. You're not gonna hear me blowing out my voice in church every Sunday.
Right.
You're not gonna hear me blowing out my voice at a show. If I'm not feeling my best, I'm gonna pull back a little bit. It's still gonna be great and amazing, but it's gonna sound a little bit different because I believe in conserving my voice and taking care of it. And so some people don't really like that, but it just you were talking about Madonna and standing up for what you feel and think and believe and having a voice for it. And sometimes even me, like being a minority, being African American. I felt like I couldn't speak up for certain things.
Right.
I've worked for theater companies where the people of color weren't getting paid as much as and I spoke up about it. This is
good
wrong.
for you.
We're not doing
I love
this.
what you're doing for this community. I think you should speak up.
And I'm really, really big on that. And I think representation for all of our communities that have been redlined or sidelined, is really important. And, I love the fact that I'm getting to play the Beast and a Prince in a Disney production.
Yeah.
As a black male, it really means a lot to me. And I don't know that I thought it meant a lot until I was doing it.
Yeah.
And I was in rehearsal thinking, this is huge. But then really opening night when we went out to take pictures and people wanted to take their picture with me. Yeah. Because I just was like, well, they want to take their picture with Belle,
Right, yeah.
But people are like, no, we want the Prince as well.
Yeah, you never know, man.
And it just blew my mind that all these little white kids,
are
like, can I please have my picture with you? And I'm like, Me?
Like I said, kids know what's up, man. They know what's up. They're so
do.
smart. I love teaching kids.
Yeah.
And back to the Madonna thing, what I was saying about her is the Papa Don't Preach really pushed the forefront for abortion. That was a big to-do when it came out. It was very controversial, and she did not care. And then she went on to do like a prayer, and they said to her behind the scenes, you are going to destroy your career if you set crosses on fire and kiss a black man. And she was like, you know what? I don't care. And she did it anyway. And it was like, it skyrocketed her career up into, and then came Express Yourself and Vogue and the sex book. And I mean, I was
iconic.
It was iconic. And I was sneaking to get that book when I was a kid. I mean, I had her posters on my ceiling above my bed. That's how much I loved Madonna. Those cone bras. I just was in love with her, you know, and she's gotten a little crazy in her old age, but I still love her early stuff.
Bless her heart.
Bless her heart. I did like her music video, though, the song Music.
Yeah.
And I've always loved the one she did for Austin Powers, Beautiful Stranger. It's such a great one, yeah.
Really good.
But yeah, she was in the forefront of like really breaking those barriers and making you question. And that's what art is supposed to do. It's supposed to
challenge
make you question things, that maybe you wouldn't do in everyday life.
Yeah, and I think if it doesn't do that, then we're doing something wrong. You know, as a high school director, I was really pushing the envelope, and there were other local theater directors saying, you can't do Bonnie and Clyde the musical. And I'm like, yeah, I can.
Why couldn't you?
Why not? It's history.
It's
part
history.
of our history.
Right, exactly right.
You know, that stuff happened, and it's interesting. We went on to do that production, and it was the parents' favorite show. They loved it. I mean, and I
what was
really
that other
surprised.
one? That Wild Party?
Wild Party.
I mean, come on, man. I hear people. Dude, even when I did Girlfriend for Actors Theater, there's the scene in there where the guys kiss each other, and we almost every show would have somebody walk out right at that point. And I was like looking at them like, really?
Did you know what you
it's
came
2019.
to see? Right? Yeah. Well,
who
same
gives
thing.
a shit if some? Oh, I said a cuss word. Wait a minute.
Oh, there's a bell.
Oh, yeah, I got a bell, and I got a corny saxophone too.
I love it.
Let's see if it.
That is awesome.
Or I've got this one too.
Oh, that's perfect.
So I haven't
have a
told you
winner.
yet, but we have a cuss jar. We can cuss on LRS,
Okay.
although I know my mom's listening, so I try not to.
Got it.
But we cuss for a cause because every time we cuss, we put money in our tip jar, and then we donate it to charity at the end of the month. So if we cuss, we do it for a reason.
Right.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
a
Drop
cause.
a bomb on
Cuss
us.
for a cause. I love that. That's
Yeah, and then nobody can gripe. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
I love that.
Yeah, but wait, what were you saying? Oh, yeah, back to some of the more controversial plays.
Well, and like you said, Girlfriend, you know, it's interesting. I was in Hairspray.
The Girlfriend has my heart. I mean, it always will.
You know what's interesting is I took my students to see it.
Oh, you
and,
did? Is that when it was here at Actors?
At Actors.
Oh, then I was playing in it, yeah.
And I saw that show, and I don't know that I really went in with any high expectations or anything. One of the best shows I've ever seen at Actors.
Dude, it still gives me
brilliant.
cold chills.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
I'm so glad they finally released it for other companies to do.
Me too, yeah.
And brilliant. I saw it twice there.
Yeah.
And so
Todd Almond, the playwright, is. I mean, he's a friend of mine. He's on my social media. He is just brilliant, man. I mean, he
and
just
I tell you
really
what,
is.
no matter where you come from, you watch that show and you can't help but feel like, you know,
heart-wrenching.
it's like heart-wrenching.
Yeah. Well, and I related a lot to it because I grew up out and gay in a very small town that did not accept me. I was kind of the weirdo, the black
Adair
sheep.
County, that doesn't seem
yes. Nope. And I came out at 17 with waving my bra, and I was blasting little kids, don't want D tonight. You know, like, they did not like me in the small town country, yeehaw. And then I came to Louisville and started to realize that, hey, there's people here kind of like me. And then it took me going to L.A. with Girlfriend, where I was like, I tell everybody this, but the second night I was there is when the LGBT gay marriage ordinance passed with the Supreme Court. So I went to West Hollywood the second night and saw that. And then there were like millions of people just like me. And I was like, wow, what a different perspective this is. You know what I mean?
It's the same way, you know, being black, you know, I, growing up, I thought, and probably in my early 20s, I thought, man, there aren't really a lot of African-American performers like me. For example, most of what I sing is more classic musical theater that fits my voice a little bit more.
Yeah, you have a great voice.
Thank you. And I don't fit in the like pop and R&B very well.
Really?
I try to.
Ooh, I would love to hear you sing some R&B and like soul music.
I know, but it's for whatever reason, my voice isn't as smooth as, you know, some of the R&B singers and stuff. So I had a really hard time figuring out, like, as a performer, like, what does that look like for me? And so I'll never forget, I went to Atlanta for an audition, and I was like, oh my God, everybody looks like me. They all had like their vest on. And back in the day, it's when we were kind of wearing sweater vests and stuff, thought we were real cute with cardigans. And I had on like a Newsboys hat or like a fedora, thinking I'm like, nobody's like me. And then they all sound like me. And I'm like, no.
Right.
You know, for in the theater world, it's a little bit because it's competition. But it was really cool, though, to see people who look like me, because here in Louisville at the time, you know, even center stage at the time, there was Frank Goodlow.
I love Frank. We need to also get him
Frank
on the
does
show.
need to come on.
Yeah, I mean, he was our Rocky Horror Man. You know what I'm saying? I've been in so many great shows with him, and he's a great director. I just love him all the way around.
Tell you what, Frank is one of the best human beings that I know, and
I agree with that.
Will give you the skin off of his bones. If
Yeah,
you could.
right.
And, but I love working with Frank, and so, but he's been a big inspiration. You know, he's a little older than me.
Yeah.
And getting to see him on stage growing up, and there's others, Troy Bell and Gayle King. You got to have Gayle
I love
King.
Gayle King. Oh, I would love to have Gayle.
Listen, that would be a 4-hour show right there.
Oh, I know. Well, she's like toured with like, is it Chick Corea? And like, oh my gosh. I mean,
everything.
her. Yeah, I know. And I love her. She was my musical director on the second time I did Rent.
Okay.
And I just loved her.
She
cracks me up.
She's amazing. She's playing piano for us for Dreamgirls.
Cool.
And so she's been at rehearsal. Actually, last night I took her home or picked her up for rehearsal and stuff. And she has the best stories. I could just sit and listen. And she doesn't remember that she's told you some of them before. So
I call that sometimers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not all timers. Sometimes I remember. Sometimes I forget. Yeah.
But Gayle King is an icon in our area.
I agree.
And especially
will you see her tonight?
I'll see her Sunday.
Okay, when you see her Sunday, you tell her Jen Yates. She knows who I am.
her.
Female drummer wants her in on my show. I want her in on the show. You can hook up all kinds of cool interviews for me.
That would be great, and I might just come sit and watch.
I would come join. It'll be fun. The more, the merrier, in my opinion.
That would be fun. And so she was in Dreamgirls.
Yeah.
So Dreamgirls has only been done once in our city.
Right. I didn't know that.
Before this time in 1991.
How old is Dreamgirls, by the way?
Dreamgirls debuted on Broadway in 1972.
Wow, I didn't know it was
It's old, yeah. And so Jennifer Holliday was on Broadway, her first major Broadway show, and she won a Tony Award. And, anyway, they did it here at Derby at the time, Derby Dinner, and Gayle King was the lead.
Yeah.
And of course, she was
done
amazing.
So many things.
So amazing. And I love her. Just love her. She's the realest chick in the room.
She is.
She will tell you what she thinks.
That's why I love her. She's another one that's like, nope, don't like it. Nope, don't do it. Yeah, I'm like, okay, whatever Miss Gayle King says, that's what happens.
That's what it is. So,
yeah, I love anybody who's real and straight up blunt. You know what I mean?
I don't have time for fake.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't either. And don't sugarcoat. I don't want to hear sugarcoat. Tell me straight up how it is, and I will be much more respectful of you as a person if you just tell me the straight up truth.
It's
but
interesting.
You got to tell me.
Even as a director, I tried not to interfere, even with musicians sometimes. But there have been some times where I'm like, no, this is what that should sound like.
Yeah, no, you did that in Godspell, and I was thankful. I was thankful. You're like, look, here at the end where Judas does this, just give me drum solo crazy.
Right,
I don't care what's in the score. Just give me crazy. I'm not like, that's my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I like to read a score, but I also am not scared enough to, once I understand what's going on, to free myself up just to play it.
Right.
And I feel like that sometimes makes the best players, maybe not the best theater players, because in theater they are kind of sticklers for being exact and stuff. But the musical directors I prefer to work for are the ones that understand they respect me. They know I know what I'm doing. They tell me exactly what they need, and then they kind of free me up to, ad-lib every now and then, and it's not so mundane every time.
Well, even when David mentioned you for Godspell, I was like, heck yes!
Yeah.
Like, Jen is perfect for this kind of show.
Yeah, because it's great. Yeah,
we want to add that flair
dynamic,
and that flavor, and I just love that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And once I hear something in my head, like how it should sound, I'm like, let's do this. Like, let's add this little bit here at this measure. Let's take it up. And like, I like loud. I mean,
me too,
I grew up in black church, so we love it loud.
Yeah.
We like everything. And so,
man, I tell you what, I grew up in church myself. I was in the choir, which I always like to laugh and say that they moved me to handbells. But we didn't have, I was Southern Baptist.
Yeah.
We didn't have a drum set
yeah.
player in our church. And I was always so frustrated by that because
Yeah.
I wanted to go to the black churches. I'm like, the
Yeah.
black churches were getting down.
Getting
You know what I
down.
mean?
And it adds so much.
It
A little bit of
does.
percussion goes such a long way. Like,
yeah.
it really does.
And of course, for me, I've got drums and rhythm in my soul, you know,
Yeah.
and it's just like I want to go to a church that moves me. And if I don't feel what I call the magic, that
Yeah.
spiritual feeling, and it's the same way when I play in bands. If I don't have that spark with the people, then
good.
I move it right on along
Yeah.
because I have had that before, and I'm always looking for that.
Right.
When I go to a church, it's the same thing.
Same thing.
I must feel something here in my
Yeah,
heart and in my
yeah.
soul. And if I'm not moved by the music or the message or the
Yeah.
pastor or whatever it is, then I'm going to keep it moving.
Yep,
You know what I
keep it
mean?
moving.
But talking about gospel, it really does all go back to gospel. I mean, you know, it really does
Yeah.
when you get down to it. Everything kind of is. We had Marjorie Marshall in here. She's a singer around town. She's awesome. She was kind of talking about that, how everything basically goes back to gospel. And if you look at any great musician, almost all of them started in
Yeah.
church.
Yeah.
And my girl Bev was no different. She never had a music lesson a day in her life. She got to tour with B.B. King. She was nominated for Grammys with Steve Vai, you know, and I got to record her, and she was just the most brilliant thing ever. She played piano immaculate, and her voice was just amazing.
Yeah.
But she grew up studying in church with her
That's it.
grandmother
That's
on,
it.
on piano, you know, and it was really fascinating to me. Coming from a trained background, I'm kind of half and half.
Yeah.
I'm like half trained, half not trained.
Right.
But, you know, when you're trained like that and then you get to work with someone who's never had a music lesson a day in their life, but they're like a musical genius,
Yeah,
you're just
they're-
like, holy crap.
It's amazing, and I love to blend those two worlds in shows
too, yeah.
because, you know, there are people that have never read a note in their life.
Right.
You know, here's a great example. Pastor Josh, who's
Yeah.
the pastor of All Nations,
Yeah.
he is an amazing pianist
Wow.
and can't read music, nothing, but
Wow.
can play anything.
Yeah.
You tell him the song, he play it. You start singing it, he's got it in his ear,
Wow.
and just beautifully.
Those types blow my mind.
And I hate them.
Well, me too, because I wish I could do that. You know.
Especially piano, you know, or guitar. I'd love to be able to just
Yeah.
flow like that. And
Yeah.
so
I
it's
can do
pretty
like
awesome.
basic, like on rhythm guitar. I can't do leads, but rhythm guitar I've been playing for a little while. So
Yeah.
all my first positions, some basic bar
Right,
chords.
right.
I can make all the notes and
Yeah.
sing some Janis Joplin,
Right.
you know, or whatever. When it comes to piano, I started taking piano lessons when I was really young,
Mm-hmm.
but it really wasn't my thing. I actually took from a guy from my church who was the church pianist.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to read music pretty well, but I also played like marimbas and stuff in the pit in marching band.
Yeah.
So I can do chords, and I've just learned like inversions and
Got it.
just basic
Yeah.
stuff. But gosh, when I watch somebody who can just really flow behind a piano, and
amazing.
it's like another part of their body, it just blows my mind.
It's amazing without thinking
Yeah.
about it.
It highly turns me on because I just love anybody with
Yeah.
talent.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
I always do.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
It's
amazing.
in Louisville, not only Louisville but across the river too. I mean, we have so much talent here. It's amazing.
We do. And it's interesting, you know, people always tell me, they're like, man, Alonzo, you know everybody. And,
Mm-hmm.
but it's because, you know, and I don't know everybody, but I try to network with people and meet people and
Yeah.
make good connections. And you never know when you're going to need somebody or they need
Right.
you or you're going to meet up again. And I was actually just telling a student that this morning that was sort of performing very lazy and just
Mm-hmm.
not giving a crap. And, you know, I said, you don't know who's going to come see your show and be in the audience.
Ain't that the truth?
And say, you know what, that person's really talented. I've cast so many people that way.
Yeah.
Or heard of.
You mean you went to a show and saw somebody and was like, yeah, I've hired people that way too.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I was telling you about Erica. You know, she's doing Grease, and one of her kids, I watched and I said, she needs to come be in Dreamgirls.
Yeah.
I actually stopped the rehearsal. Was like, you want to come be in this? Come be in Dreamgirls? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like,
exactly.
all right, well, come on. And just from watching like their performance, and it was a rehearsal,
Yeah.
but she was giving it everything. She had talent. She had that it factor. And so for me, that's what I need to see or hear things about. You know, I had posted on Facebook that I was looking for some extra people
Yeah.
for Dreamgirls, and there was people who messaged me that I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not casting you because I saw you in the last show you were in, and you couldn't dance, or
Right,
you could, you
right.
know. And so, you know, it was
Or
all
for me, it's always if they're really difficult to work for.
listen, I won't do it.
I won't do it anymore either. I'm
Nope.
like, if you give me attitude and you are very difficult, then I will just move it along and find somebody who ain't.
I have some close friends and family that I won't
Yeah.
work with because
Yeah.
I love you. We can be family and friends, but we're not working together.
Yeah,
'cause
it's hard to work with family. I
It
think,
is
too,
hard.
Yeah.
It is hard, and all of my family performs. So
I accidentally hit the bell on the word family. It's not a cuss word. It's not a cuss word.
yeah. So
Yeah, I hear you on that. But yeah, Julie Wolfe, who was the music director of Girlfriend, told me once, she was like, I would rather hire somebody who's way cooler with less skill set and easy to get along with.
That's how I feel.
And she told me, she was like, you keep doing what you're doing because you're so easy to work with and you're so, understanding when I say don't do this or when I do this or whatever. And she was like, you're going to go pretty far with your career.
That's it.
So, yeah.
I love it.
And I mean, she toured with Ani DeFranco and the Indigo Girls, so and was producing Carly Simon last time I checked.
That music for Girlfriend, my goodness! I wish they would make a cast recording.
Me too. We tried. There's some kind of legality.
What happened with that.
There's some kind of like copyright legalities, but Matthew Sweet, that's his record called Girlfriend, and it was. It dropped a week before Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana.
Oh, no.
So it was set to do really well, and he kind of was on his way up with the label, and then he drops this beautiful record, Girlfriend, which I love. Every song of it, I've played it a million times. And she put more of a feminine spin on it with the vocals and stuff. I mean, her harmonies are, ridiculous.
The harmonies are just...
That's her specialty. I mean, if you listen to the Indigo Girls and the way they blend their harmonies, Ani's kind of the same way. I mean, anybody she's worked with, they have just beautiful harmonies. But anyway, and that's her forte. She loves to sing harmony. She's brilliant. But something happened right after he dropped that. Literally a week later is when Smells Like Teen Spirit hit. And we both lived through that time period where grunge just took over. As soon as that record dropped, nobody gave a crap about anything that had come before it. It was straight up grunge and all about Seattle and Pearl Jam and all those bands.
But man, that album is just it's so good.
I
And it's
know.
like got this sweet quality to it that's just and so I love what
Did you know that the Winona track on that record is about Winona Ryder? Like, evidently he had a fond love for her and wrote
I did not know that.
Yeah, and Matthew Sweet sent me roses the night of opening night out in California.
Wow.
And you were just talking about how you have to bring your A game to every show because you never know who's going to be. I was looking out, and Courtney Love is sitting in my audience, and the Bangles, and Bruce Valanche, and Meredith Baxter Brooks from Family Ties. I mean, I met the craziest amount of people when I was out there, and I was like, this is surreal, man.
Oh man, did Matthew Sweet see the show?
He never saw the show. So get this, Matthew Sweet is kind of a recluse. He's a true artist. He was totally in support of the show. He loved the idea. He's all in support of gay marriage and anything. He loved that we put an LGBTQ spin on his record, during the performance and stuff like that. He sent everybody in the show roses and little cards thanking them for their contribution. I think he saw, you're not supposed to record the shows, but we secretly recorded the shows. You just can't put it online. But I still have a copy of the actual show from Actors and L.A.
Wow.
And somehow he saw part of it, I'm pretty sure, and was very in support of it. But he did not want to fly to L.A.
Got it.
And he's kind
Does
of a
he
recluse.
live in like the West?
I think he lives in New York City.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but they say he's a true reclusive. He rarely comes out. He rarely performs anymore. But man, that Girlfriend record, the opening track "Girlfriend" will always be one of my all-time favorites. And there's Looking at the Sun was a big favorite of mine.
Well, and it's so interesting. Even Pandora just did the show,
right? Yeah.
And I saw it, and I was really impressed. And I just sat there with one or two tears just coming down. I mean, you feel that. It's just,
man, when you're on stage, you feel the band is a silent third character.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and they never acknowledged that we're there, but we were there, according to Todd, we're there as an older lesbian group watching the young two gay guys who haven't discovered themselves. When you have everybody who has discovered themselves and lived through it behind them, and we're kind of watching over them as a motherly figure. That was his take on it.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved the all-female band at Actors.
Yeah, and they did that on purpose. He wanted the show to have an all-female band. Yeah. And Julie Wolfe is a big women's rights activist and stuff like that, and she wanted an all-female band so that if they did go on and do it in other cities, that they had to hire female musicians, which I loved.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
I would think it's very similar to like, The Color Purple, where it's an all-black cast.
You can't change that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's just a part of the show that you can't change, and that's kind of what makes it amazing in its own sense.
It is, and we've had there have been theater companies across the nation, not particularly here, who try to do shows like Color Purple or Dreamgirls with not authentic.
Yeah.
And it just changes the story.
It does.
It's not the same thing. And
correct.
So there are some shows where it does not matter, but Les Mis, it does not matter.
Right.
But The Color Purple,
it does matter. Right,
yeah.
By the way, I got to do The Color Purple with JCC. It was one of my favorites, and oh my God,
shout out to Tamika Prince.
Tamika, we love. I love both Tamikas.
Both Tamikas.
I always call them both
McDonald,
Tamikas. Yeah. And one of them played Ursula.
Yeah, Tamika McDonald. Yep.
In the Little Mermaid I did.
Yep.
I'm trying to think. I've been in a ton of shows with
Tamika McDonald is my cousin. Actually.
Yes, I know this.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's just get the whole family in here because you've got the most talented family ever.
My sister sings, and my brother plays drums and stuff.
Yeah,
so
you guys are all very talented.
It's because we were all forced to do it as kids. We didn't have a choice.
Right.
We had to sing in the choir and take lessons and stuff.
Yeah,
so.
well, that's cool. It kept you out of trouble at least. You know what I'm saying?
It did, actually.
Yeah.
So.
No, but I love the Tamikas. I also did, what was it, Mary Poppins.
Oh, yeah.
I was talking to Kay Michelle. We did Funny Girl together. I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
I just love, there's so many that I love. But The Color Purple, the big kiss scene, you know, because it's slightly different than the movie.
It is.
I love the movie, and it always makes me cry. But I'm just all for any time they push the envelope on, like, women kissing women or boys kissing boys or just anything LGBTQ that really makes you question things, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, and I think when you think about the show, and on top of that, I think the music pushes the stories along so well in that. I mean, it's amazing. It's one of those shows like Girlfriend where I hear it and I'm like, oh my God, that's so good. So I would love to direct The Color Purple.
Oh, I bet. I bet. Were you in that one? I can't remember.
I was not.
I can't remember all the shows we've done together, but we've done a lot.
I was originally supposed to be, and I didn't end up getting to do it because of some scheduling conflicts. But that would have been great. And I think too, like I feel like you've also subbed on some shows that I've been in as well. And
I'm trying to remember which ones because I've done so many at this point. They all run together.
I know. We definitely did Rent together, and but I took a break obviously from performing. And I did Ragtime and Smokey Joe's. And
I love Smokey. I would have loved to have played Smokey Joe's.
Man. Also
any of that
one
50s,
of my favorites.
60s, 70s rock and roll
that
kind of stuff. I love that.
is like right up my alley, and vocally it's really good for me. And
I could see that.
I've had a blast singing like Stand By Me and that stuff.
Those are all the classics.
Love Potion No. 9.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, I love that stuff.
Yeah, me too. That's all the stuff. I grew up a rocker, but that style, that older style is the stuff I was really listening to.
I love it. I love it so much. So
me too. That's super rad. So Redline Productions.
Yes.
And remind our listeners if they're just now tuning in what you got coming up because you're doing all kinds of cool stuff.
All kinds of stuff. So we're doing Beauty and the Beast Junior. So it's a 60-minute production ranging. We have third grade up through high school. And so our Belle, she is just graduated high school this year. And so the show is August 10th. We are taking donations on redlineperformingarts.com. You can also get tickets to the show there. We're going to be announcing our next production at the show on August 10th. That is our goal. And then we are going to be having some classes, voice lessons, acting lessons, those kinds of things, specifically for students, but for all people. And our motto is that we want to make the arts accessible and affordable for everybody. So
that is rad,
redlineperformingarts.com.
We love that. Yeah. And Alonzo, I just want to compliment you because I just love what you do for the community. I love what you help do for the West End. You know, I'm all about equality and helping people. And obviously, we just did the She Castle event to raise money for women's homelessness and also Girls Rock Louisville, low-income kids. And we're going to be presenting the checks for those charities next week.
Oh, it's awesome.
Anybody who does anything philanthropic or gives back to the community is so like important. Right up my alley. It is important. I don't think people realize that a lot of times. There are a lot that do, but you know, people get so busy in their everyday lives that they just forget that it's about the little things that
They
you do for the
do.
community to help.
Well, and that's why I love directing too, is because as a performer, I felt a little selfish,
Yeah.
and I felt like I was just doing it to get the glory and to get
Yeah.
people to praise me.
Exactly.
And I needed it as a young performer. I needed that.
Right. I feel the same.
I didn't feel like I did a good job if people weren't coming to me telling me how great I was.
Yeah.
How amazing. Your voice, And now it's interesting. They have to force me to go out after the show to the audience,
Yeah.
to see people, because I'm like, I don't really need all that. But doing what I do with Redline really helps me to feel like I'm giving back.
Yeah.
I'm investing in the next generation, and not just the next generation. We had people in their 40s and 50s in Godspell.
Yeah.
Out
yes.
there working. And but to let them know, like, we had a mom who told me straight up, she's like, I had kids, and I didn't get to pursue what I love, and I love this.
Yeah.
I hadn't performed in years. And so to be able to give her that platform to be featured.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Carmen, she was amazing,
Yeah.
and she killed Turn Back Old Man and Bless the Lord. That
Oh,
stuff. She
yeah.
was so great. And
Oh, bless the Lord. I love that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, I had to get a tambourine stick for that show. Had never had to purchase one before, which is not just like a regular tambourine. It's actually a stick that you hold that's a tambourine that you play your drum set with.
Yeah.
Which I was like, this is genius. My friend Elaine Hartwick bought one and was
Yeah.
like, use this. And I used it for Godspell, and it's so cool. I was like, I'm going to be using a tambourine
It is
stick from now
awesome.
until the day I
Listen,
pass.
I love a tambourine. If I could
Me
put a
too.
tambourine in every show, I would.
I know. Well, you pretty much can. I mean,
Yeah,
you
you
can
can
sneak it in
somewhere,
there.
yeah.
In fact, when I play on a drum set, I have they call it a hat trick. It's a little tambourine that goes on
Oh,
top
on
of
the
your
top of the
hi-hat,
hi-hat, yeah.
so that when you use your left foot, you get a little bit of a tambourine
Yeah.
jingle. It just helps with the groove.
Yeah.
So I love that. But the tambourine stick was kind of new to me. But for gospel, I mean,
Listen, I grew up in church. Like, you had to, if you didn't know how to play the tambourine,
Right.
you didn't have rhythm.
Right,
So
exactly. Well, and I tell you what, I've studied tambourine under Vicki Randall. Do you know who she is? Okay, she was the first black female percussionist, just female in general percussionist on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. She played conga.
Oh.
Big old hair.
Yeah.
Okay, listen to this stuff. Listen to her background.
Okay.
She's toured with Quincy Jones, Aretha Franklin. She's on Who's Zooming Who, Pink Cadillac. That's her on backing vocals. Also congas. She just quit touring with Mavis Staples as her background singer. And she's all over the early Whitney Houston tracks and toured with her. Her resume is ridiculous. And
sure.
she literally is not just known in the female drumming world. She can play any instrument.
Wow.
And she's got a punk rock metal band out in San Francisco,
Excuse me?
or Berkeley, I should say,
Like a-
called Skip the Needle. And they just dropped a new album yesterday. So I'm trying to get her on the show.
That's awesome.
Anyway, I had never seen anybody play a tambourine like that until she played tambourine.
Yeah.
And
It's amazing.
oh my gosh, there's this girl, Marshall Lastly from New York City, that they both just did a tambourine solo on stage. And I
love
was
it.
just like,
My
Dumbfounded.
baby sister and I, we used to have tambourine battles during church.
I love it. I love it.
To see,
It's not an easy
it's
instrument
not
to
easy.
play.
And then we would toss each other the tambourine
Yeah.
and take over for the other one.
I love
I mean, we
that.
had such a good time growing up doing that.
You made me.
so.
I've been meaning to, since I'm a percussionist, bring in a bag of percussion to the show, so that when
yeah.
we've got people sitting in the booth, we can like
Do
rattle a
stuff.
tambourine and stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize tambourine's incredibly hard to play.
Very
It is.
hard.
You can't just pick it up and hit the 2 and the 4 and expect to
cannot.
be a tambourine player. If you go back and listen to any Stevie Wonder track, and listen to the way that
Stevie.
they pan the tambourine, and he almost always played his own tambourine
it's in
tracks.
there.
It is freaking amazing. Try
Yeah.
to emulate that stuff.
It's its own thing.
It is. And
Yeah.
in Motown, which is one of my favorite styles of music, it's very prominent percussion. But
is.
to sit and play a tambourine track, like record one for a full 5 minutes in a track,
Yeah,
if
that's
you're
tough.
not holding it the right way, playing it the right way, your wrist locks
Oh.
up, it's incredibly hard.
It can be painful
Yes.
to play the tambourine. People
Yeah.
probably don't realize that.
Haven't you ever seen anybody who's like licked their finger and like rubbed across the tambourine and done all those kind of weird styles?
not seen
I'm gonna
that.
send you video of Vicki Randall playing it. Your jaw will be on the floor. Because I've never seen anybody
I
play
love that.
tambourine like that. You
I
know what I
love
mean?
that.
Yeah, I love that too. I like anybody who can play, who puts a spin on an instrument. There's a girl around town who plays a stand-up bass, but she gets on top of it and like almost does a handstand while she's playing it.
Wow.
I mean, I had never seen anything like
That's
that
bizarre.
either. I know.
Listen,
I like
love
bizarre
showmanship.
stuff. Yeah, me too.
Because,
Me too.
I actually grew up. I was like a huge wrestling fan growing up.
Oh, me too. WWF, man.
all
Four
the
Horsemen,
way. Listen,
represent.
That was my stuff. And,
Hulk Hogan,
you
man.
couldn't tell me
Andre the Giant.
And it's actually one of my secret passions that I want to actually be like a wrestling commentator.
Really?
Isn't that so weird?
No, I kind of love that.
Like I want to like call.
Wait, what's his name? The bald guy, that used to always be the commentator.
There's Jesse Ventura.
Yes, I love Jesse Ventura, but the one before him that's really short. You know what I'm talking about? He was like late 80s, early 90s. Anyway.
Gene Okerlund. No, there's others.
Anyway.
There's a lot of them. But
I used to literally, I don't know how old you are again, but I used to buy the pay-per-view VHS after it would come out the day after.
Yep.
It was my favorite thing in the world to do. We would go to like some dude's house and pay him $10 and he would
to get it,
dub it down on a VHS machine and I'd be like, yes, WrestleMania 2. You know what I mean?
My whole household, we were every Monday night, my mom included, we would watch Monday Night Raw and as a family, and obviously, so I'm a little younger. We would in the more of the late '90s.
Yeah.
In fact, I see this John Cena picture.
Oh yeah, John Cena, yeah.
But yeah, so we were big fans toward the late '90s, and but I just love
that's
the
when
characters.
wrestling. Yeah, the characters are the best part. Yeah,
and then add the music into it. You know, it's interesting. The music really wasn't added to wrestling until the late '70s and '80s.
Yeah.
And it was started out with rock and roll. I mean, they had a whole thing called rock and wrestling because, you know, they infused rock music into it, which just helped make it boom.
Yeah.
But some of those wrestling entrances and stuff, I just love the showmanship.
Dude, Rick Rude, the Road Warriors.
So
I could go. And when Lita came around, I was drooling. I still drool over Lita.
Listen, that was my heart right
She's
there.
a badass. Oh,
she is.
yay. We like badasses on our show. Yeah, she is. I mean, she would do those drop kicks, and man, when I was a kid, my sister probably hates me for this. I used to try to rack her.
Oh, yeah.
You know what the rack is?
The torture
I'd
rack.
put her, because my sister was so little, and I was always way stronger than her, and so I would always like put her across my back and be like, rack.
You know, we used to
or
do
the
that in
pile
our
drive.
house.
You know what I'm saying?
We did it in our house, but we would tell our mom, we're just practicing self-defense.
Right.
But really, it was wrestling.
Right, yeah, wrestling moves, chokeholds and all that stuff.
Well, there were 5 of us. And I'm the oldest, and I have a brother. He's the youngest, and then there's 3 girls in the middle.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we would be the tag team against them. It was just classic stuff, you know.
Well, I don't know why, but it always turned me on when like women would just beat the crap out of each other. But
crap.
you knew it was fake. I mean, still knew it was fake back then. But the showmanship of it, the theatrics of it. I mean, nowadays it's crazy when that Undertaker stuff was going on. There's been some really crazy moments in history of wrestling.
Yeah, I don't even know how I got there, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't either, but I love that you love that because I was a huge.
People don't know about me.
Yeah,
I was a huge. I mean, huge.
Me too. I even have the trading card still. I do.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I don't even know how I know that, but I do still have
I did
those.
have all the action figures, and I didn't even get rid. I mean, I kept them in a box in my closet until I was probably in my early 20s.
Wow.
And then I randomly gave them away. But
I was going to say they might be worth a lot today because
are.
I have the He-Man action figures, and those are worth quite a bit of money nowadays.
They probably are.
The little Orko and the Skeletor with the slashy chest, and
throwback right
I
there.
know. I was always the tomboy. I'm like, I did not care anything about Barbie. I wanted Castle Grayskull with the, you know, like. I was in the trenches with the A-Team, big, you know, all kinds of stuff. A-Team was big when I was a kid. And so.
Well, and we, growing up, you know, we did a lot of, like, acting. It's so, thinking back, it's hilarious. We would do, like, sitcoms on our front porch and act out. So Martin Lawrence is, like, a huge influence on me.
Oh, yeah. He's hilarious.
His TV show Martin back in the day, you know, every black family on Thursday nights at 8:00 watched Martin. And so we would act out full on episodes. Like I'd probably have seen every episode, I'm not kidding, 15 to 20 times at least. And could quote every single episode of that show. But we would act it out, you know. That was our thing growing up, is we wanted to like act and perform and we would critique each other. I mean, it's ridiculous. I would have like a notebook and like score my siblings, and especially when American Idol came out, you know, we would like perform our own songs.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we still have videos of us like perform. It's hilarious
Yeah.
now to watch.
Yeah.
But we would like record us making music videos.
Yeah.
Coming out of
Oh,
the
I was always doing that
you
too.
know, doing weird stuff like
It's
that.
always funny because everybody my whole life have been like, you're a tad bit on the dramatic side. And I'm like, well, that's the theater in me. I mean,
is.
like, you know, you have to have a tad bit of drama and
Yeah.
flair
Yeah.
to be interesting. I feel
Oh, you
like,
do.
know, it's not anything bad.
Yep.
It's just how some of us are
We're
created.
wired that way. And
Yeah.
I love it.
And as far as how that applies in the music world, for me personally, like the showmanship.
That's it.
If I'm back there behind a drum set and I'm in a band setting, I guarantee people are going to look
People
at
love
me.
it. People
Yeah.
love that stuff.
Well, and a lot of times I feel like the drummer, they're just always kind of in the back, although we weren't in the back until like the 50s. Before then, the drummers were the band leaders. They were in front with the orchestra behind them and the singers behind them.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and so, you know, nowadays I feel like it's all about the singers. And everybody
Yeah.
wants to look at the singer. Well, I disagree with that.
Yeah, I like that.
If I'm behind you, they're probably going to be looking at me.
Yeah.
And if not, I'm going to do something to make them look at
Right,
me and pay
right. I love
attention.
that.
So, yes, but it takes a very strong individual
It
as a
does.
singer to be in front of that.
It does.
And to
Well,
respect
and, you know,
that.
David Borman was, you know, conducting for Godspell. And, you know, he's a very expressive conductor.
Oh, I love him,
And he
yes.
was like, you know, I should probably tone it down. I was like, no, I love that. And we got so many
Yeah.
comments from audience members that were
Yeah.
like, man, he was so into
Well,
it.
I told him the same thing when he was in. I said, dude, the emotionality that you put into your conducting
Yeah.
is inspiring to me.
It's amazing. I love
Because
it.
I want to see somebody up there doing that. Because when they're doing that, that means
Adds- you
that's
step up
I'm
to
going
it.
to
Yeah.
give it to them too.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to throw it back just as raw
Yeah.
as you're giving it to me.
Exactly.
You know,
I love it.
because it is kind of an exchange emotionality wise
It
when you're
is.
playing music and stuff
It
like
is.
that.
I
yeah.
absolutely love it. I love it.
Well, I hope he keeps doing it because I told him to be 22 years old and be a conductor waving a baton at somebody is just amazing to me.
It is, and you know what? That's why I wanted him to do Dreamgirls
Mm-hmm.
because, you know, some people were like, oh, David's doing Dreamgirls? You know, he's young. He hasn't done a show at Center Stage.
Right.
And I'm like, everybody
Which blows
starts.
my mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody starts somewhere. And so we already had, you know, I had been talking to Gail King about being a part as well. And I'm like, well, with Gail and David, like, that's
Oh,
going to
yeah.
be amazing.
How are those two
It's so
working
great.
together? Oh, I would love to come see
He
that.
walked up to me the other day and he was like, I love this woman.
Oh, I do
Like-
too. Yeah. How can you
And,
not love
how
Gail
can you
King?
not love
I
her?
mean, she's hilarious, man.
And she tells it like it is, but
Yeah.
David does too.
Plus, she
you
kept
know?
bringing me cake. Like her daughter makes cakes.
I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Oh, yes. Her daughter.
have some
Her
cake.
daughter runs a pretty large cake company around town.
Okay, I
Yeah.
did not know that.
So stay tuned. I bet she'll bring you a cake
yeah,
one day.
I'd love that. Come on, Gail, bring me that
Eat
cake.
cake or
Yeah,
death, cake or
right,
death. Do you know who
right.
Eddie Izzard is?
Yes, I sure do.
He's my
Yes.
favorite comedian of all
Okay,
time, and
yeah,
he's
yeah,
got
yeah.
the famous
I know who
cake or
Eddie
death
Izzard is.
scene,
Yeah, I know
yes, which I
exactly who he
love.
is.
It's
Yeah.
like, that's not a hard question. Cake, please.
It's funny. I didn't grow up as a huge stand-up
Yeah.
comedy fan, but one of my favorite stand-up acts is actually Ellen.
Oh yeah.
She did this whole act, and
Ellen's
there's this thing
hilarious.
about like procrastination and stuff,
Yeah.
and she proceeds to procrastinate the
Yeah.
joke, which
Yeah.
is hilarious.
Oh, well,
And
you know what? Speaking of Eddie Izzard, or Eddie Izzard, however
Yeah.
you want to say his name, he's a transvestite comedian
Yep.
who dresses like a woman but gets up there and he talks about his life,
Yeah.
which makes me, I could just really relate to him. I
Yeah.
loved him. Anyway, Ellen credits him with getting a lot of her comedy from him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they're very similar, and he's been on her show, and she's thanked him.
That's awesome.
And I believe that exact idea that you're talking about is one of the things that she claims to have
Wow.
gotten from him.
That's awesome
Because he does this whole skit. I know for a fact that she got this from him. He does this whole skit where he's like, something about Frank Sinatra. He's like, yeah, man, I heard on the way here that he passed, and everybody in the audience is like, and he's like, no, it did. It's really sad, and then he's like, no, he didn't. I didn't. I made that up, And then he'll go, no, I'm totally joking. He really did, and he'll go back and forth with that. And nobody knows whether he's telling the truth or not, but you just keep laughing.
And I love that kind of comedy.
Yeah.
It's
she credits him for that.
That's great because she does do that kind of thing.
Yes.
That's exactly. You're so right.
Yes,
That is,
and I've met him twice, and I had him autograph my drum head, and he's British. He's got this really thick British accent. But he was like, wow, this might be the most interesting thing I've ever been asked to sign. So I said to him, yeah, I'm going to sell it on eBay. I was being funny. And he goes, good luck, kid. You might make a book. He's just a really cool
That's
dude.
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think he's
that's
like running for parliament or something over in London. now.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He's got he speaks 8 different languages.
I did not know that.
He's played more arenas than the Rolling Stones. Isn't that nuts?
That is.
Yeah, he's pretty famous overseas.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. Anyway,
well, it's
check
like
out his Dress to Kill. That's his
Dress
most
to
famous
Kill.
one, and that's the one that Ellen claims
I love that. Yeah,
to
I
have
will.
gotten her
'Cause I've never
inspiration
watched
from.
any of his. I mean, I've seen him on different things.
Yeah,
but
Dress
not
to
his
Kill
stand-up comedy.
is the first one you want to do. He did that one in '96 in San Francisco.
Okay.
And it's live, and it's back when Clinton was our president, and
Yeah.
he's got a lot of comments about
Okay.
that. But I mean, it still stands up today. It makes me laugh every time I watch it.
I love to watch that.
And I love to say that I was out before Ellen because I was.
There you go.
I know. I mean,
That's crazy to think.
It
isn't
is crazy to
Like,
think. I was laughing yesterday with somebody. I was like, I was out before Ellen, George Michael, Barry Manilow. I mean, the list is insane, you know, and you're like,
Right.
really? And
You
I was
don't
like,
think
yeah,
about
I
that.
remember when they came out. I was already out.
Wow.
Like, yeah.
You know, I do remember Ellen. I mean,
Yeah.
I do remember
It was a
that
big
joint.
to
It was
do.
a
But
big,
you know
big
what?
thing.
Rosie was right in front of her, and I think everybody kind of overlooked her
That's
for that
true.
reason, yeah.
That's
But of
true.
course, she was more of a family-friendly show before
Yeah.
Ellen got to family-friendly
Right,
show.
right.
But yeah, I think there was I don't know why everybody was so scared to come out back then, because I was like 17, not giving a crap.
Although,
you know,
now, I mean, obviously 2019.
way easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, way easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I totally have been there and done that. But I'd love to say that I was out before Ellen, because it's the truth. So I'm here on LRS102.com, The Walrus with Alonzo Ramont.
Yes.
I do want to remind you all, we got LRS Fest coming up in October. That's going to be so cool. And we got all kinds of cool stuff going on. The Grateful Dead event is going on this weekend
Yes.
at the Brown and Foreman Amphitheater. We want you to join us down there. All kinds of cool stuff. And since it's Friday, I'm going to play some Cure.
Yes.
I'm in love with Robert Smith. Oh, droll. It's Friday. I'm in love. You're locked into Generation Nation on the Walrus. It's Friday. I'm in love by The Cure. I don't know what you think about that 80s, 90s rock and roll.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I will say I mostly grew up with like a little bit more R&B in the 80s and 90s, but I love it. I discovered a lot of that stuff a little bit later on than most. But
growing up, I was always kind of the weird kid that loved very strange things.
Yeah.
And I'm a sucker for a man in a dress of any sort, or a man with feminine qualities, or a man that wears guy liner or lipstick, or is a little more on the femme side, or that tests the gender roles, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
And Robert Smith, I don't know if you've ever seen him, the lead singer of The Cure. He's got the craziest hair. He wears lipstick. He's got this very feminine quality too.
Got
so
it.
he's very Rocky Horror. You know what I'm
okay.
saying?
Yeah,
like,
that makes sense.
Or Eddie Izzard's the same way. Yeah.
Well,
So-
I like George Michael too.
Oh yeah. Oh heck yeah.
Time can never mend.
Man, that Freedom 90 track, that bass line where he's like, I won't let you down, I will not give you up. That bass line is one of my all-time favorite. And they used to do it at the Connection all the time. I can't remember which drag queen did it, but some drag queen did it, and it just always has been ingrained in my mind. And every time I hear that bass track, I'm just rocking out in my car, you know. George Michael was awesome, man.
Yeah.
So, Alonzo, it's been so cool to have you in on the show today.
I'm so grateful to be here. It's
I'm
awesome.
grateful for you to be here too, and I love what you're doing. I want you to, kudos to you
Yes,
for
thank you.
bringing awareness to the West End and trying to get arts down there, and for your Redline company, and I just love everything you do.
I appreciate it.
And I wish you much success in Dreamgirls, as well as
you.
Isn't It Beauty and the Beast Jr.
Beauty and the Beast Jr.
And then you said you had a few other things coming up,
Yes,
and
yes,
I'm going to
yes.
keep praying that we get to do Jesus Christ
Yes,
Superstar together.
yes, keep praying because
Yeah, I will. I pray every day.
I just need to. I'm looking for I want to do it in a warehouse.
Okay.
Isn't that weird? I want to do it in like an empty, abandoned warehouse feel.
I love that idea.
So if you have any,
Ooh, I do have an
leads,
idea.
let me know.
Have you ever seen Art Sanctuary?
I have actually.
That's kind of a warehouse
I
feel.
have, yeah,
and they got a big old stage.
They did something there that I saw. Maybe
They do
Sweeney
the
Todd.
girls rock look. Oh, Sweeney
Maybe I think they
Todd.
did Sweeney Todd.
I
there.
love me some Sweeney Todd. Anytime somebody's chopping up somebody and putting them in meat
Yeah.
pies, I am all about it.
That's Sweeney Todd.
Yeah. Wouldn't it fry green tomatoes where they chop up the dude and put them in the soup or something? Yeah. Again, you can do anything you want
Anything
in art.
in art, and we just are like we
I
love
know.
it, right?
Yay!
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of anything artistic and anything that's a slightly on the morbid or
you
dark
go.
side.
Yeah.
I mean no harm. I just like it in my
Right,
theater. You know what I'm
right.
saying? So, Alonzo, tell people once again if they want to check out your productions, if they want to donate, where do they go
so
online?
our website is Redline Performing Arts. You can follow us on Instagram, also on Facebook. Listen, if you just want to, you're scrolling through your Cash App today, and you decide you know what, I want to send $50 to Redline. you can Cash App us at Redline Arts. And everything we do, we are actually, we have been a LLC, but we're becoming a nonprofit organization. Cool. And so we're always looking for sponsors and donors as well. So join us. Join the mission.
And you can sponsor a kid.
And you can sponsor a kid on our website. Just click the donate button. And we're just trying to make the arts accessible and affordable for everybody.
Awesome. Love it. Well, thank you for coming in today.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you for all the hookups for the future
of
interviews. After, you get some more shows going on, you're welcome to come back and join us and talk all things awesome.
I would love to. Thank you.
Yeah. You're locked on to Jyneration Nation. Alonzo, you have a great day.
Have a great day.
Enjoy your weekend. Yes. Everybody tune back in on Monday. I've got Michael Drury in from Pandora, and I've got a whole full awesome lineup next week. I am Jen Yates. It's LRS102.com, The Walrus. Stay groovy. I'm leaving you with some Motley Crue and Dr. Feelgood.